we can see in the match standings. Yeah. But still, I think the Mongolians are the team to beat right now with a very, very good reason and a very, very big margin. And I'm so interested to see how they will continue here. I don't even want to start with a storyline. Oh, they only got 4th place this time, because they still got first, and 4th. And once again, they did not have a heavily favoring them circle in the end game of a single match. Every single time they had to play for it in Circle 5, Circle 6, and sometimes even Circle 7, and they still managed to be victorious. So I just want to see them standing on a hill firing at everyone at this point.
Yeah, quite indifferent to Kazakhstan, who just didn't get any zones whatsoever. And I gotta say, if there's one team I expect to pop off for the rest of the tournament, starting now, it is Kazakhstan. Their players are just too strong not to have the performance that we expect them to. They are fraggers, all of them. I expect all of them to win aim fights against almost any player in this lobby. And I think now they realized, hey, we need to fix something. Because sometimes it takes a little bit to get to adapt to this tournament. And we said it at the first round, maybe now it's happened. I said it at the second round, maybe now it's happened. But I feel like now it's enough. It's enough. Kazakhstan, you guys are so experienced. Show us what you're made of. And please show us that you can also play passively in the beginning of the rounds. And show us that despite the circus not working in your favor, you can pull off these big rounds in terms of placement points as well that we've been waiting for.
Given their position on the map right now, and putting that into perspective with the plane path and the first circle, they will get a chance to fight. I can promise you that 100%. They have the second least priority for a good spot in this first circle. And if this ending on the map is going to be north of that river, they will have to fight so much. So they can definitely prove your suggestion right away in this game. The only team, surprise, surprise, that has it worse is Bahrain, which has been pretty much their motto as well for the entirety of the game. I love how this next plane path basically mixes everything up again. We have seen 2 very similar plane paths in game 2 and 3, but this one creates entirely new scenarios for game number 4.
Let's take a look at the overall standings. We haven't really shown them to you ever since game number 2, but I know you guys are excited out there, so here it is. Mongolia in first place, 45 points. Bahrain just behind them, 33, 12 points difference. Not to be underestimated. And we've only played 3 games so far. Kazakhstan, 30 points. Jordan in 4th place, 21. And Palestine right behind them. Both these teams with a great match in game number 3. Uzbekistan with 17 points. Tajikistan right behind them as well. So far, I think overperforming almost, despite them only having 16 points. We saw them being, proactive, taking initiative. Just that little bit of luck has not gone their way so far. Turkmenistan was 7, Lebanon was 7, underperforming heavily so far, and the United Arab Emirates with 0 points in the 2 games that they've played. But then again, they've only played 1 game as a full foreman and have gone out in phase 1, so maybe that's about to change.
And if you're surprised looking at the top left the screen once again, seeing only 9 teams in the lobby. We cannot tell you the reason for it, but Tajikistan is not playing this game. So that's why there's one team missing. If you're a Tajikistan fan, I hope, honestly and sincerely, that they will return when it's time for the deserts of Miramar in game number 5. For now, we will have to do with these 9 teams, out of which one is Palestine, and they are on the hunt, attacking the team Uzbekistan that is currently looting in Rozhok.
Well, could be perfect for them. If he rotates with the vehicle towards the street, or maybe, I don't even think he needs to take out the play in the vehicle. I think he could look for Hardboy. I think that might just be an easier frag, but yeah, we cannot underestimate the distance. It doesn't look that far, but we've all stood up here and tried to spray down there, and it is, it takes incredibly amount of skill to take the gyroscope and spray that distance with the DP. So
100%.
I'm not so sure if he's even going to try without his teammates.
I mean, the main issue here also is that Uzbekistan is always going to rotate north, so away from Palestine. There's no way that they will ever rotate into them, because this is the map that we have right now. And they most likely want to cross that river right now, given that there's like a 60-40, 70-30 chance that the game is going to end north of that river. And Uzbekistan, simply being in the middle of the pack right now, have to play for these chances. They have to play thinking that this will most likely end north. And given the plane path, and that's the last thing that they will basically have to have in mind here, given the plane path, they know that there's nobody up north. They simply know that they have a whole wide free map ahead of them if they rotate quickly. And they are doing so right now. I think the first buggy is moving.
Yeah. Rotation timing is also something I haven't really spoken about. Changes heavily with the amount varies heavily with the amount of teams that you have. Oh, maybe now? Oh, Heartboy. Oh, I think he spotted them. I think Heartboy spotted them now. Yeah, he did. So he knows he has to be careful. Should still get into his vehicle relatively safely. Yeah, there he goes. But yeah, rotation timing is also something that changes with the amount of teams you have. Usually I'd say you as players, you can pick up centralized spots easier with less teams involved, and you can rotate later, which is kind of an advantage on both sides. While I dodged that thought, as we have two Palestine players rotating around the city, pulling up on Uzbekistan. They really want to fight this. I'm surprised, because there's not really a necessity to fight this, but they want to do so anyways. HLS up in the warehouse. First initial shots going his way, but he has to be careful. There's no immediate support right around him.
Please don't deny my visa if I ever want to visit you. I don't mean this personally anyway, but I don't understand why they didn't rotate again. It's the same thing as in game number 2, where they had so much room. And isn't the north just so much better? I understand wanting to keep Rozhok potentially, because you have access to both sides of the river from here. But still, the position, if you fight from Rozhok up north, it's not great. It's much better to be there right away. But they seem to be so keen on simply staying in their position to avoid danger at all costs, and they always do because of it. Well, if you fight with your UMP like that, it doesn't really matter. Is he gonna get a second knock? No, just barely does not get it. Team on successful. And now Uzbekistan is gonna lose a player early on once again, and they don't even get this flush for it. I'm not a favorite of the playstyle. I don't really enjoy them not rotating.
Yeah. Nade coming in. Timon has to be careful. He's not caught with that nade, though. That means it's going to stay in that 4v4. But the way Hamzy is positioned, I don't think there's a way for Palestine out of this, and I don't think there's a way for Uzbekistan either. It all comes down to Hamzy now getting that first initial knock. Oh, Tapak not exiting the building on that side. Denies him the chance of getting that initial entry. But I'm pretty sure he's not going to be spotted, and he's going to get that frag. Now Tepog drops down, and the first entry has been found, and that is Palestine against Uzbekistan. Finding the first one. It is so unfortunate. Uzbekistan once again being caught in crossfires in a positions where you don't expect them to necessarily have to engage in a fight, right? You're just looting here. You don't necessarily think of a foreman just randomly pulling up on you, but they will. And being caught off by that, the same way Kazakhstan has been pulled off by Palestine before. They will lose not only 1 but 2 players in the result of that.
There's a whole other team pulling up right now, and this time it is Palestine who noticed quite quickly that UAE has come to the party. They are in here right now, and I think finally picking up their first elimination points, and by that their first points overall. Uzbekistan limited to only Hardboy at this point in time. And from being the team with the best position relative to the first circle to being the first team out most likely is obviously not great. Gonna repeat it. I would love to see them winning a game, but I honestly think the only thing they have to do in order to massively step up their game is to simply find a way out of their loot spot towards the center of the first zone much quicker than they do right now.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agreed. One more nade is flying over. Little do they know it is only Hardboy. And one of the players already being disconnected. I don't want to say why that is, because we don't know. But that's never a good sign. And honestly, if I were in his shoes, I'd be tilted as well. So if that is because of tilt, which I don't think it is right now. These guys are professionals. I would still very much sympathize with them. I wouldn't have expected Palestine to pull up on me like that, and then to get the frags as well. That first initial confrontation was spotted so early and didn't result in any knock that you would think Uzbekistan could save it. But unfortunately they couldn't, just because of how dynamic Palestine played and how smart Hamzi has played this whole scenario as well. So shout out once again to Palestine. I'm surprised by what they play.
And once again, also because Palestine is playing those fights very closely together, very dense in those scenarios, while Uzbekistan tends to get the first knock, but then can't really capitalize on it. Well, let's stop kicking those who are down already, and let's just hope for good Miramar rounds from them while we take a look at the next fight, which is, in fact, that prolonged fight of UAE against Palestine. Palestine is fighting so well here. They are getting a third flush, a third confirmed elimination, and they only lost one player in the process.
Hamzi is playing the game of his life right now. He might just find another one. Punches rotating straight towards him. Misses the shots, though. That is normally the perfect lineup. You see a buggy driving straight towards you. You've got the DP. Pretty much only need to spray, but it was downhill, and it was downhill sideways, so that makes it even tougher to kind of predict his pathing. So not going to be happening. Kazakhstan now trying to close the distance, and look, Kazakhstan knows as well, again, that they can coexist in Razak. It's very hard to rotate out, and you leave a lot of variables open if you don't fight these teams head on and early on as well. So that's why you can see Kazakhstan trying to close the distance, trying to get into this fight. Just have to be careful. So far, they've been third-partied in positions where they shouldn't necessarily be third-party to begin with, but they have. So if it happens again in this game, late game, once more is not going to be in the cards. And at this point, we're all just waiting for it to happen. We're just waiting for this lineup to finally reach late game to show their true potential.
I love these situations that aren't necessarily super interesting in terms of watching a great fight, but in terms of understanding the strategy of the teams and the strategic intelligence. And we just saw a player just rotating with a buggy in a small circle for 10 seconds. But what there was just making sure that the entire Kazakhstan squad, well, 3/4 of it, would rotate directly close to each other so they could quickly react if they ran into any sort of trap here on the eastern side. Also, we see it now. Zone goes towards the north of the river, which means that the entire fight, not only Uzbekistan, also Palestine and UAE in Rozok, was basically useless. It also made Kazakhstan not being able to rotate as quick as they would have loved to, I think. So this whole situation is something that I think the coaches and the analysts of the team could have a quick look at and potentially resolve for the remainder of this tournament. But it can't be resolved in this game, as the blue zone's going to do it for them.
Yeah. That's where the coaching comes in. Yeah, tough circle for them now. I'm very surprised. Lots of these teams proactively put themselves in worse positions than if they would have just rotated. Even Kazakhstan, even Palestine now, despite them finding the frags, are not really in prime position to make anything happen. Despite it only being phase 3 and 8 teams, you would expect there to be entries. Lots of them.
I agree when it comes to Palestine.
With this specific circle, it's tough.
I fully agree when it comes to Palestine. I think Kazakhstan simply couldn't rotate. I think Kazakhstan expected Rozok to simply be free. Once again, they came from Milta and they rotated after like 8 minutes. I think they just thought Rozok is 100% gonna be free, or at least there won't be 3 teams there, right? So you oftentimes go for this Rozok bridge because it's usually the first one that is freed up, because it is so tough to get out of there once you let a second team in. And that's why usually people tend to leave it before a second team even joins. But this time there were 3, so Kazakhstan couldn't really rotate. They are in the circle now because the north obviously is entirely free if nobody rotates early. They are meeting up with a contender, though. It's going to be Kazakhstan against Lebanon, and that is a rematch of Game 3 again.
Oh, yes, it is. And I think both of these teams will try to fight their way in against each other. So far, it's just auto scooter being played. Everyone's got a car and plenty of buggies as well, but Lebanon is now driven away from the hillside. They will find themselves this position in the very far northern corner of the current safe zone, which is a pretty good spot to play from. You've got the high ground, you can play downwards, but it doesn't secure you a nice game either. Lebanon, we've said one of the most underperforming teams right now. We've got high expectations. Zakaria, more experienced than plenty of the other teams. For example, some of the players that we have from Palestine playing. And still, so far, only got 7 points for his team. So, they need to step up. And with Kazakhstan rotating in, it's not going to get any easier.
And Lebanon is doing a pretty good job here at pressuring Kazakhstan into rotating into less safe spots in the middle of the current circle. Kazakhstan quickly noticed that taking a fight here on the edge of the circle was not what they wanted to do. And they simply pull up behind Lebanon right now. So Lebanon will likely be the last team fighting into the circle, which is something that a lot of these teams enjoy. Simply knowing that you cannot be third-partied from behind, putting pressure on the teams in front of you. Something is a playstyle that a lot of these teams tend to like. And there are a couple of those teams in a similar situation right now. Is there another team going to challenge? Is it going to be Palestine? Are they going to challenge Lebanon? They might actually.
I think they will. What we've seen so far from Palestine is this very aggressive approach. And they do not shy away from breaching your position if there is need be. But I think this position is unbreachable, honestly. If they breach this, I think even for Palestine, who've shown us great potential in breaches, there's not a way. First of all, it's going to be Kazakhstan, though. Being, actually losing a player. Asa got taken down. I'm not sure what happened there. More breaches are being caught off guard here as, wow, Becca, the sub that we've seen, the MVP in the previous rounds, is being traded out, and suddenly it's just Puncher. He is close by, though. He could make something happen, but he needs to perform against not only one, but 3 players. As you can see, Palestine is right above him.
It all comes down to whether Palestine knows what happened here, knows that it's right around the corner. Well, we find out that it doesn't actually matter because Puncher is being taken down on long distance by Lebanon. And that means Kazakhstan, after considerable amount of eliminations, I think. I guess they will have like 6 or 7, so this is definitely far from a bad round for them. Let's have a look. It's 6 eliminations, so still not a bad round, but they open the gate, or actually they open the chances for Bahrain to create an even wider gap between current placement number 2 and 3 on the overall leaderboard.
Yeah. Oh, look at this, Lebanon, they might just overstep their boundaries as they rotate into Kazakhstan, I believe, Bahrain. On that southern side, just based southern side of their compound, obviously. And Bahrain falling back as well, though. None of these two players that literally just crashed against each other. Exit the vehicle. Now the first one comes in, though. Prapo takes down Mezen. And that's the knock they needed. And Bahrain, honestly, from what we've seen so far, will clean this up absolutely brilliantly. Neos with another one. Who would have thought? Because at the moment, he's just cleaning out this log all by his lonesome. Zakaria being taken down as well. As Haidu drops the nade right in front of his forehead. And it's just one player left now. Lebanon, they've had such a great spot. It all fell apart in a matter of seconds when they overstepped that ridge line.
One thing that we know by now is that you definitely never want to give Bahrain an easy opening in a fight of this sort. It will not serve you well, and it has not in this situation. But there is a second contender. Palestine wants a piece, and they started out much better with the early knock of Wassem, almost getting Neos, the MVP of the previous round, dodging the car with a beautiful jump here. Palestine is actually moving up on the leaderboard, and they are actually popping off right now, getting this elimination because Bahrain notices, all right, there's no point in continuing this confrontation. Our position is way too open, way too bad. Wassem has the high ground, and they feared that he could actually take down even more players of their team. So Palestine can go for the rest and actually play on as 3.
Massive stuff. Absolutely massive stuff. I'm incredibly surprised by the way Palestine plays. They are fearless. They are absolutely fearless. And you got to give them credit for it. As we see Bahrain rotating off. They still got 3 players. They only lost 1 off of that skirmish with Palestine. But even that 1 player might just be enough to kind of gatekeep them from winning this one. Because they're in a really bad spot now. Just down below off of Palestine, who's got the high ground. Not a safe spot for both of these teams. And I think it's going to come down to a 3v3. I don't think they will coexist either.
It's not going to happen. If Palestine doesn't decide to rotate once again further west, where they would then meet another team, and I assume they know this is a confrontation that has to take place. This, by the way, being the main position that could give Bahrain the upper edge in that fight. That long distance angle that can basically see the entire ridgeline is going to help them so much, because he can constantly call the positions of the Palestinian players and thereby help his duo in front of him to maybe bring some very nice nades into the right positions. That vehicle is empty, my friend. No need to take any further shots at it. Wow! Okay, it was Neos in the end. I thought that was a perfect knock through the smoke, but Neos, he saw someone up close and knocked him.
What a play, though. He moves out of the safe zone again. He knows they have to take out Palestine if they just wait for the blue zone to move. Palestine has got all the time in the world to take them out one by one. So they take the initiative. They take the advantage that the zone has given them and push out of it and try to fight them up the hill. And it works out perfectly. 2 knocks immediately being gathered. It's only 1 player left alive. Neos, despite his teammates doing the majority of the work, has got a massive angle now. The last player, Hamza, moves out of the zone. Oh, he does massive amounts of damage, not only to Frizzer, but to Neos as well. And that means he's going to have to fall back, at least for the time being. It is still a 2v1, as Bahrain has got Frizzer down. But with that nade, if that comes good, it doesn't. It might just look different. But no, for the time being, Palestine still being that solo.
How exactly did the last player... Who is that solo there? Is that the last player? Okay, it's the last of Palestine. It's Hamza. Actually chose to prone down. Notice that there's Turkmenistan coming from the other side. Love to see how proactive they are playing this. They notice there's a fight up north. They didn't stay still. They have the commanding lead when it comes to player strength and amount of players in this game, simply being the last team that is 4-man strong. Mongolia, on the other end, is still playing super proactively. Nice nades coming out here. They want to secure basically every side of the circle right now. They have one up north, one in the western, one on the southern side. Mongolia is just everywhere.
Wow. Well, that's what we expect from Mongolia as well. They want to take all the space they can. They want to deny you the opportunity to grab control of the circle. And now we're getting to a stage where high ground, due to the fact that you can really view the high ground nicely from the positions that you've got from the low ground, is not really that much of an advantage anymore. And now Mongolia realizes, they realize, hey, the more positions we take, the more we can pressure everyone else. The rest of the 4 teams, they don't know that, but we do, into fighting each other instead of fighting us. And that's that. Yeah, it's working perfectly so far. Look at this. Klausdog gets taken out. Hamza just continues his killing spree. Absolutely massive stuff coming out from the Zolo out of Palestine. Might even fight Legenda. Legenda shoots back, tries to find him around the left side of the tree. But no, he hasn't just yet. Nate gets popped. Oh, as he gets more shots out from Mongolia. You can see that's what I was talking about. That's so tough for Palestine now. Pretty much everyone else, for Turkmenistan as well, to fight on these edges, because everyone else got vision on you.
There's a nade coming out, and it's gonna be the end of that last player of Palestine. Actually, the first elimination point for Turkmenistan? How did they end up only getting that one? I thought they were fighting for quite a long time, but no. They only have 1 elimination right now. Bahrain and Mongolia. It is their playground once again. Mongolia so hyper-aggressive. By the way, the last player from Uzbekistan is still alive. And we just saw him flying by this buggy.
Look at this. Demo, I don't think he knows it. I don't think he knows it at all. Hot boy. He's right behind him. Maybe if the chance opens up for him. Maybe if there's going to be a good trade coming in from Bahrain against the ongoing onslaught from Mongolia, then he's got a chance to make something miraculously happen here, as he is unknown as it stands right now. Alex, taken down to around 30 HP. Medkit comes through, though, and it's going to continue being there through the... I'm very surprised Turkmenistan is not doing more with this, because Mongolia has completely given up their western side, so he should be fine in these positions.
Bahrain and Mongolia just kicking it off on the eastern side. They would both have way enough room to not fight right now. But they are just like, all right, we are the top dogs anyway, so let's decide who gets all of the points in this one. Many nades being thrown back and forth here. Demo, that one is way too far. Neos still alive. 2 players of Bahrain against 2 players of Mongolia. Trying it with the car. Yeah, and he gets that knock. That was important. Where there's a car, there's a way that Neos finds to get a knock with it. This is just insanity. 9 eliminations for Bahrain, and they just took Mongolia out in 4th place once again, back to back.
Massive stuff coming out from Bahrain and Mongolia throwing away this round. I felt like they had the massive advantage, but just couldn't close it out. And Turkmenistan, same goes for them. How do you not capitalize on the 2 knocks that Bahrain had, or at least the 1 knock? I feel like you needed to. You knew that your side was probably going to be clear.
I'm so with you. Why are they still here? Hearing all of this going on, not moving in closer, throwing a couple of nades. They're being ready before the already stronger enemy, at least that's what it feels like, had time to regenerate themselves, and that's how they suffer from it. Chappie getting taken down, and now it's a 3v1v1 that Bahrain almost cannot lose, and Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan are playing for 2nd place, and honestly, playing for tiny bits and pieces right now. The 1 elimination on the team of Turkmenistan, even if they get 2nd, this is still not a point-heavy enough game to do anything for them on the leaderboard.
No, we said it in the beginning of the day. You need these big rounds, and if you have the chance to take them, you should grab them. Because it is only 12 matches, and there's only 2 spots. And if you have strong teams like Mongolia starting off a day like this, then it's almost down to a single spot. And at this point, if you don't grab these chances, then yeah, 6 placement points in a flag might be nice, and you're not going to be at the bottom of the leaderboard, but you're not going to get these top 2 spots that you want with all the flights and hotels and everything attached, and you representing your nation in Riyadh for the World Esports Championship. So, man, you gotta put this into perspective, as you said, perfectly analyzed. If you have the chance, go for something big. I can't really blame Uzbekistan as much, I feel like, as I can Turkmenistan, but Turkmenistan definitely had the option to do so.
There's also nothing to be won here if you play it defensively. It's like being 0-4 down and subbing in another defender. It's just not gonna do anything for you if you don't play it proactively, and even if you lose faster, there's still the point that you will never win if you don't play proactively. Well, let's watch the end of this game. It's gonna be Uzbekistan actually taking 2nd place after this incredible fight in Rozhok in the beginning. But the story is in white and red. Bahrain are winning this game after coming so close on map number 3. And this time, they take it down with a dominant performance, fighting against Mongolia, the previous top dogs, when they didn't actually have to, and then in the end just picking up the last ones of Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, and they end up with 22 points.
Massive stuff. 22 points is going to catapult them up the leaderboard, and I think at the moment we do have our 2 favorites. As it stands off right now, Mongolia and Bahrain, they just cannot be conquered. I gotta say though, Mongolia, they did have a chance in this one as well. They did have a big chance in this one, and it could have all gone very differently if they would have won this round. But let's take a look at some of these highlights, especially Palestine, who once again surprised us massively. Again, I think I'm not only speaking for myself, I'm speaking for you as well. These guys are aggressive. These guys are agile. These guys want to make something happen. They're taking initiative as well. And in a tournament of this caliber, to have some of these players that haven't played in the competitive scene for 2 years almost still perform at this level is massive. So Palestine, hats off to them. They seem very dangerous and unpredictable to some degree as well, which is what you need in this type of lobby.
Love their play style all the way. They know that if you would have an analysis on paper, they would definitely not be put in the top 2 in this lobby. No chance. But they are playing as if they were, aggressively attacking everyone, taking every fight, rotating faster than many teams before them, constantly putting them into better positions. I'm still gonna say that in a couple of these situations, they are picking fights in a way that could be done much better. I mean, the game before where they almost fumbled it in the beginning, but still, they are somehow ending up on top, and until a nade of this kind comes along where you simply have no chance. But still, Palestine is playing so strong.
Yeah. Good stuff once again from Neos. I feel like that driving frag was one of the most important ones as well. It kind of just sealed the deal for them. So Neos, we're going to take a look who's going to get the MVP, but I feel like it's going to be Neos again. Winning team, most important frags in the team fights, and I think he picked up 3 or 4 for his team in total as well. So massive stuff from them. That cleanup also. Bahrain, they're just not scared anymore. They've realized this lobby is theirs to conquer, depending on who's right in front of them. If it isn't necessarily Mongolia or Kazakhstan, then they do not need to be afraid. That's what we've been seeing so far, and that's what they know at this point as well. And sometimes that confidence, whether or not it's true, because we do have other strong teams in this one, let's not kid ourselves, whether or not it's true is sometimes more important than the truth itself.
Him jumping into his sports car right there was basically the perfect solution to the thinking outside the box question in an IQ test. That was just so amazing. Both sides taking shots the entire time, and him like, okay, what can I do to solve this quickly with as little danger as possible? And then it's all right, let's take this car, run him over. I'm just going to do it perfectly, time it perfectly, drive out of that smoke and just catch him off guard. I just love it. These are the moments that esports is made for, I think, and this is why so many people are watching. So awesome moment. And doing that in a situation like this, where it's so important to do everything perfectly, also shows the kind of player you are, right? Because so many people would be so stressed in that situation that they wouldn't even think of that solution.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, especially if you're in a round, you've played for 20, 25 minutes, and now you're getting to the late stages. Maybe you've already had 2 or 3 team fights. You still need to be creative in your decision making. You still need to take, and that's the beauty of esports. There's a million decisions, especially in PUBG Mobile, that you need to take and you need to take correctly every single step, every single phase of a game. So these 1,000 decisions, maybe 500 of them won't really have any impact whether or not you do them wrong, but maybe there's 10 of these thousands that you just necessarily need to do correctly, and he just does them, and he seems to not fumble under pressure, and that's kind of these micro decisions that a lot of people struggle with in late game, and I feel like Turkmenistan is a perfect example of this. You could see him, but Rain kind of drove straight towards him. He realized, okay, he's going to have trouble. The first thing he did is shoot. I feel like a player that wouldn't necessarily have that much trouble or pressure maybe would have expected that move to happen and repositioned himself differently. And then that whole fight on the northern side would have been going on. So I feel like they're struggling with this.
I fully agree. And then this move by Neos might actually look like an amateur play, and he might just be taken down super easily if the enemy is expected. Yeah. So obviously these situations need to work in order to look so fantastic. And many times he's just gonna miss the enemy with his car anyways, and it's just gonna look a little bit weird. But honestly, who cares? Because it worked this time. It looked great, and there's no criticism to be had if it works, right? Especially in such an under pressure situation where every point is important, and where this game of Bahrain and that specific move within the game of Bahrain might just be what ends up winning them a ticket to that wonderful tournament.
Yeah, who knows? As we said, it's only 2 spots. For anyone still asking in the chat, there's only 2 spots in Group A that will be going off to represent their nation at the IESF 2024 World Esports Championship. That's what we're here for. That is the path. That is the Asian qualifiers, by the way, in case you've just tuned in. The Asian and Oceanic regional qualifiers. It is a tough name. It's a very long one. IESF World Esports. But yes, so once again, 2 spots from Group A. That's the 10 teams that we are playing today. Tomorrow we will see Group B. Once again, Group A and B in changing order. And for the next 4 days, this whole tournament will be going on. And then 3 teams from Group B as well. But we'll get all into that tomorrow. 3 teams from Group B will head towards Riyadh as well at the end of the year. Almost at the end of the year to represent their nation. And then potentially take home a very big prize pool as well. So do stay tuned. I feel like so far, yes, a couple of teams have dropped out of the race in Group A. I think it's fair to say that maybe UAE needs to pick up 2 wins today to even have a chance. But for the rest of them, I think it's still very much possible. Lebanon being one of the teams that so far has disappointed us. But maybe that's about to change. We still have 2 more maps.
At this point, I'm not even sure if 2 back-to-back wins would be enough. But what I'm sure of is that once again, you blessed us with a perfect prediction, because Neos is once again
Oh, yes.
100% deserved the MVP of this fourth game. 4 eliminations, 5 total assists, led his team to victory with a creative move on top of that. I'm actually not sure how that is put into the calculation. What if you have 3 eliminations, but somebody else has 4, but you do one of those eliminations? Are you still the MVP? I don't know. I don't want to actually vote on that because it would be way too difficult for me, because there are so many amazing things in an individual game of a PUBG Mobile Esports. But yeah, Neos deserved this one. Happy that we caught that moment, and we have a back-to-back MVP in an almost back-to-back winning team.
Yeah. Let's take a look at these head-to-head statistics between Bahrain and Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan playing under their expectations. Not in terms of eliminations. They've been very steadily racking up these eliminations, but we said in the beginning of the game as well, we need to see them in a late game. So far, they have almost... actually, I want to see the overall standings later to actually see how many placement points they've gathered. Because in a lobby where it's 10 teams only and you get placement points starting from 8th, I feel like even 10 isn't enough after 4 games. That's actually not good enough. In a normal lobby, that would be, but after 4 games, it just isn't. I think Kazakhstan is going to be somewhere around that double-digit mark. So they need to step it up. I think they're still very much in the running. That's one of the teams that we've talked about at the beginning of this tournament. In total, they came in with a very experienced lineup. All of these players have played absolute top, at the absolute top of the international scene. And you know these guys as well, right? IESF punched up 6. Sure, they're playing with a standing right now, but even Pekka has had his MVP moment. So I'm sure it's not going to matter too much. At the moment, it seems like fighting power is more important than strategy anyway, so they shouldn't really be at a disadvantage playing with a sub instead of their full 4-man normal roster. So excited to see them play. Once again, I still expect 1 game to be won by Kazakhstan for today. That only leaves 2 more chances for Kazakhstan to take home that 10-point dinner.
When it comes to eliminations, Kazakhstan has actually been quite steady, quite strong for the entire time. They've constantly had a lot of eliminations. I think 8 in the first game and then 7 or 8 in the second one. Now 6 again. But when it comes to those placement points that you just mentioned, they have actually fallen off quite a bit. First game they got 4th, and then second game they got 2nd. And now they haven't really picked up any further placement points afterwards. What they really need is to not bite off more than they can chew too quickly in these rounds. They actually had a couple of chances where they could have fought a little bit more slowly and a little bit more thoughtful to not run into too big of a problem, which I think was pretty much every single time their end in a game, or they sort of end, because I also count it as pretty much the end of your game if you lose every single player but 1. Yes, that player can still do wonders for you, but is that really reproductive? I would say no. And you want to have situations that you can reproduce game after game after game. And Kazakhstan can almost be happy that they got that 1 second place on the Yasnaya Fields in game number 2, because without that, the gap to Bahrain would actually be huge right now.
Yeah, 100%. Let's take a look at these player statistics really quickly, because I think it's so interesting. I talked about Becca and him being originally the 5th player for Kazakhstan, and I was very surprised to see him today, but he's still the one that we gotta take a look at. He's been one of the most consistent players for Kazakhstan right now, and he's been one to make key frags as well in the fights that we've seen so far. So 3 eliminations for him, as opposed to Prep, who's had the 4. Also, one insanely, Prepo77, everyone knows him, one insanely skilled player. He's got over 35,000 in prize pool. He's, by the way, same age as me, so a very young player, as I may say. And I can only repeat this a million times, he's just come off of not only winning the PMSL in MIA Spring, but also the PMNC MIA Wildcard 2024. So he's won both these tournaments with his team Brute Force. These guys are coming off of an absolute high. He's been fragging out for literally the entire year in the MIA scene. So I expect this to change even further. I think Bahrain is just getting started now. That's to say something. Especially since we've seen Mongolia with such a strong start. But I think at the end of the day, we're definitely going to see Bahrain at the very top. And if these last 2 games were an indication of that, I don't know what is.
If he's just an incredibly talented, just as old as you player, why aren't you playing?
I'm washed now. That's a question I don't have an answer for. Stop it.
All right, let's move towards the match summary in terms of some key statistics. We once again had a game where Smokes and Nades actually paid a rather big role. They always do. I mean, already that last elimination against the last player of Palestine, super key situation. You don't think about it that way when you watch it from the sidelines, but having that player out quickly so you can actually refocus on the other important tasks ahead is super, super vital in these games. So super important. But actually, I would say, and it is quite well represented in the number. In the recent game that we saw, the third one, where nades and smokes were basically guaranteeing wins in fights and in the end, the win of the game, we had 200 smokes and nades thrown. In this one, that felt a lot more fight focused and less utility focused. We only had 142. That's a full third less. So that actually makes a lot of sense. And I love these stats. I know some people just want to see those fights, and I understand, and they are awesome. But I also love the strategic component behind PUBG.
Yeah.
And it was very, very noticeable for me in this game.
Yeah, that's Gideon for you. I remember you analyzing each and every statistic of the PUBG Mobile National Championships and so on and so forth with all the total knocks and nades and who threw the most amount of nades and stuff. But I actually think one thing I do have to say, and I think a lot of people underestimate this, one of the first things I've always looked through when we had player statistics, and I'm going to do this after the first day as well if you have access to these, is nades thrown and smokes thrown. And you can always tell these are the most experienced players. The most experienced players, the players that have played the most amount at the top of the international scene. Old Boy, for example, was one that just last year at the IESF World Championship threw the most amount of nades. And I don't have to tell you guys how long he's been in the scene, literally since the very beginning, like 2018, 2019. These guys are most of the times always the best performing ones as well. So there is a certain correlation between certain statistics that don't necessarily have any impact on frags or points, but just on an overall macroscape in terms of results. So very interesting for you guys to note as well. And also something to just realize for your own gameplay. Integrate nades, integrate smokes as much as you can. You will find that it helps you and benefits you massively. But ladies and gentlemen, we do have another statistics for you, and that is the match standings with Bahrain topping it with 22 points.
And that's a gap. That's a big, big gap. 22 points, and the next team in line getting 8. That is a 14-point advantage against the entire field that Bahrain has played out in this fourth map of the day. Uzbekistan actually, with that wonderful snake play of the last player, fetching 7 points. As we mentioned, it's not going to change a whole lot, given that only 2 teams will make it through. But the one thing that is going to change a whole lot in that regard is that Kazakhstan has only gotten 7 points for themselves in this game. So 15 points less, and Bahrain were already ahead of them. So Kazakhstan has a lot to make up on Miramar in these 2 final games for the day.
Let's take a look at the overall standings, ladies and gentlemen. It is Bahrain with 55 points, standing at the very top of the food chain. Mongolia just behind them with 50. I honestly expected the difference to be bigger. It is only 5 points at the moment. You can see placement points and eliminations being switched around here. 22 for Bahrain, 22 Alems on the other side for Mongolia. So Bahrain definitely fragging out a little bit more. Obviously due to the fact that Mongolia has won the first 2 rounds. And then just behind them it is Kazakhstan. A little bit of a bigger difference. 13 points. I think nothing that we have to be afraid of as a Kazakhstan fan at the moment. But then again, we don't know how the next 2 games are going to go. A 13 point, maybe even as we have here, maybe more than that difference can be bigger if you don't make it now, obviously. And at that point, it does become big of a problem because time and time again, these tournaments have shown if you are a top team in the first couple of rounds, and we've not only played 1 now, we've played 4, most of the time, that's going to go through the entirety of the tournament. So these guys most likely will not stop. And we have seen Bahrain and Mongolia. There's no reason for them to stop at this point. They are dominating this lobby. They are dominating these fights as well. So I don't expect it to change.
Especially in a situation where you only have 10 teams, right? Because if you had more, maybe the RNG factor would be bigger. But the less teams you have, the more it becomes clear that a dominant team will stay